Well, welcome back to another session of the 7th grade painting project. Today we're going to continue on with our painting, trying to work our way all the way to the end of the street and then ultimately to the background, and then ultimately from there to the finish line, I suppose. Let's get ready to get going here. Of course, you're going to need your clean area, working area, of course. And we are going to be using our watercolor kit again, as usual. I'm going to be taking mine out so it is kind of more visible to you all as I use it there, although it kind of reflects some weird light at me. Okay, so it looks like we were working our way down this side of the street and then started over here at last report. So what I think we can do is move on to this building and paint the front of it in, and then go back and start working on details in other parts of our buildings that might still be missing some stuff. Even though the Park Row here looks like it is done, it does have tiny little details that need to be dressed up there right here as well. So that's all we're going to be doing is each session when we come in, we're just going to be working our way down the street towards the next objective. Okay, so make sure your brush is clean. I can't guarantee that your brush would be clean when you take group lessons. Now, my brushes are always pretty clean, but I don't share them with very many people. Okay, I've kind of made a decision about this particular place, and it's going to be blue. I think that's just an appropriate color for this. So the blue would be right next to the green. Okay, unless you got your paint kit upside down. It should be red on the left, blue somewhere in the middle. Okay, now when you first mix up your paint, sometimes it gets a little bit runny, and you got to just really be very careful about the way that you put the paint on initially. Okay, so I'm feeling pretty good about this, so I'm going to operate without a slip sheet here for a while. I'm going to start with my blue up in here and simply trim. Now what this is going to do is keep me from using blue in my signs or windows, because they will be, it would make them disappear into that material. So I'm just going to have to, you know, be patient and figure out kind of as I'm going sometimes precisely what my next step is going to be. And in this case, it's going to be to go back and do some detail work, and that will give me some time to think about a solution, if I need one, to my other dilemmas there. I'm going to have to move around my painting a great deal here, since I can't really move it off of the work table. Okay, so yeah, I delivered pizzas. Man, that was a tough job. And then I got fired on Christmas Eve. I was sick as a dog too, really sick. And I had to work that evening, and I simply could not get out of bed to go do it. And called my boss, and she fired me right over the telephone there and told me to drop off my uniform, and she'd pick me up. She'd get my check to me as soon as I did all that. Man, that was a tough job. It was just tossed overboard like that. But I learned a lot about business, being a pizza delivery guy. But we would get good tips sometimes around Christmas time. It'd be cold outside, show up with their hot pizza, and they would be very, very generous at Christmas. Now, when we would deliver to college kids, we rarely got tipped very well. You kind of started figuring out where all of the parts of town that you would want to deliver your pizzas to, because the people will tip you well, and then other addresses down, you know, near the college where you're like, I'm not going to make any money at all on this trip. It's just costing me money. Sometimes I felt like I was making money, but in retrospect I wasn't. But we did get tips. We got tips. We also got a commission, which is when you sell something, and in my case that was pizza. Every time we sold or delivered a pizza, we got a tiny amount of money for that. And so it did add up. If you were good at selling pizzas, it did add up. We used to make this really large pizza. I mean, it was really, really big. You couldn't carry it in a car. And I was the only person at the pizza delivery place that had a van. But this thing was like, I think 3 feet across. It barely fit in our ovens when we would make one. And it took a couple of those big paddles to get it in and out of the oven with. And then it would cut up into about 100 pieces. It was a lot of pizza. You really had to like your pizza. But they were, people would order them for birthday parties. They would order them like at the holidays, for Christmas parties, especially for offices. And those pizzas were really, really expensive. And so I was the only one with a van. So I almost always got to deliver those pizzas, and I usually did quite well on that run. We also delivered to the Dayton Mental Health Center too. That was in Dayton, over on Wayne Avenue. That was in our zone, and yeah, we didn't make a lot of tips that way. Let's just say that you never really met the person that was buying the pizza. You just went into the facility, and the receptionist or whoever was on duty at that time would take your money or take the pizza and come back with the money. So that was kind of an odd experience in a lot of ways. And I think they closed that place down eventually. Hey, that blue looks pretty good on there, although there's something really going funny over here I need to dress up before I mess up. There we go. Okay, so I'm just using tiny, every time I go back to I get done painting a portion of this, I go back and pick up just a tiny dot of water on the end of the brush, and I am using the extreme fine point of the brush. Okay, so you just got to keep at it here, and sometimes, you know, what we're trying to do is get one kind of uniform blue color, if we can achieve that. And so, you know, you may notice that it seems to be taking me a month of Sundays to paint some of this stuff in, but I like the effect that I get from this, you know, careful approach. And I get a lot of people ask me how it is that I make paintings, you know, really well, and I guess a lot of the solution to that, or the explanation of it, is I just don't get bored that easy. And kids tend to get, and students at this age level, tend to get bored very easily, and so activities that require long amounts of sustained focus are not necessarily a middle schooler's favorite activity. Although people that do have long attention spans and good sustained focus, this is an activity that they thrive on. So we'll just keep on working here around all those details I put in there. Boy, I'm glad I didn't get it too detailed. I'll never get this thing done, but we're making good progress here. I think we're in session number 4 or 5. Oh, my hand's sticking in my yellow paint. That's why I need to get my index card out, so I don't pollute my yellow paint down there at the end. So, I should practice what I preach. It's already looking kind of smudgy down there. Okay, so fresh index card, keep me from ruining my work that I already painstakingly worked on already, so I don't like to have to go back and fix stuff if I can avoid it. Now, it's kind of unavoidable in most cases. You're always going to be going back and addressing it. Alright, that's looking pretty good. So let's just keep on moving there, and hopefully we'll just get it done here once we analyze what we're doing for a while. Oh, excuse me, somebody's here. Sorry about that interruption. Let's just keep on doing what we were doing here, which is painting in this blue building, which seems like I started it yesterday at some point. It doesn't seem to be getting any closer to being done sometimes. Alright. Keep on moving here. A neighbor. He's going to be taking away some brush from my mother's backyard, which is nice of him to do, because I don't have a truck here for that. Okay, it looks pretty good. It's looking pretty good. Okay, time to move on here. It looks like we're just about at the end of this particular building. Let me reorient this so I can get this vertical area. Okay. Okay. Okay, that's looking pretty good. Now I'm going to have to go back and get this last little piece over here, and then I've got to start thinking about what I'm going to do detail-wise on my next building here, on my first building, and just continuously keep working my way down the street and making the decisions and carefully keeping the paint right between these very, very detailed areas. If you can keep that going and keep control, that is fantastic. Okay. Okay, very good. Very good. Okay. Now, let's see. I want to maybe just kind of touch up this one area here a little bit, because it seems to be not necessarily real bright. Okay, that looks okay. Alright, that's what we got. Okay, so I think I'll just leave that alone for now and rinse out my brush, and we'll move on to another portion of this. I'd like to kind of break that area down. There we go. Because I want it to be transparent, you know. So you can see the numbers good. Okay, that looks pretty good. Okay, we're going to rinse out. We're going to dry off your brush, and we're going to come back to some details that we have left on other things. And so we'll go back to here first, and I'd like to start because I like my doors to be brown in this case, so, and brown doesn't get used a lot in these projects, so we like to include it in there. Okay, so let's see what we're going to get here once I start working on this surface. That's pretty nice. Okay, it's got to be fluid enough to move around, but it's got to be opaque enough to not, you know, show really the paper. Very good. Okay. So now if we make these little vertical strike marks or stroke marks with the paintbrush, or strike marks with a pencil, excuse me, and they overlap a little bit, it starts looking like wood grain there. And that's a good thing if your wood is good. Now some people say it looks like everybody in this town's got rusty doors on their buildings, and yeah, you might be, I can see that. You can see it. Alright, so I'm just going to keep just touching my brush in a little bit of water, picking up some more of the color, and continuously keeping the surface of the paint moving, so I end up with either the overlapping marks that I'm looking for wood grain, or at least one smooth panel door. Okay, one smooth panel door. Very good. Okay. Same again, we just keep going back and addressing details, painting wet paint next to already existing dry paint. And that really can give you very good control. There are times when you really would want to paint wet next to already existing wet paint, but that's more of an advanced skill. If you were painting flowers or landscapes, I suppose, or water, anything that's got what we call a variegated surface, meaning it's the colors are all kind of twisted together carefully or attractively. So that's a little bit more of a difficult skill to control. Some people can do it at a very young age, especially if you are experienced with watercolor already. So each type of paint has its own type of strengths and drawbacks. And in this case, one of the strengths of watercolor is it's very expressive. One of its drawbacks is it's extremely difficult to control. So just the tiniest amount of paint for control is what you do with watercolor, when sometimes in acrylics and oil paint you really get your best control by heavily loading the brush and just trying to roll that bead of paint along to where you are expecting it to end up some point in time. It gives you some pretty good definition too. Okay, so my door is looking fantastic here. Let's see what we got here. The video is looking good, so I think I just moved the board a bit, but we're going to have to live with that, folks. So I'm going to just keep on. Let's see, I do need just a touch more of the brown right here in the upper portion of my door at the Dayton Daily News Journal Herald. This is the newspaper of the era when I was a child. Now those two papers have joined forces after many, many years, and they are now the Dayton News Journal. And I don't even know if it's printed in print anymore. If it is, where you can get it. I think everything is now online. It's an e-paper. Okay. It's looking pretty good. Alright, I'm going to rinse out my brush, and I'm going to go to maybe some other colors here. I think, you know, I could probably use orange in here, and it would show up pretty good, and it would be thin enough that it doesn't really, it would look more like a sign and less like a window. So I'm going to get me some orange, and I'm going to try to keep it a little bit on the thin side, meaning more watery than gluey. I'm going to have to move around so that I can get a good angle on this and protect my artwork. And see, that will show through there very nicely, and it picks up that orange from the sky, sunbeams, just that we did earlier. So Okay. Now if you use just the very finest point of the brush, if you cover up your previous work with like an index card or a piece of paper or some sort, you'll get really much better results this way. Now, so you know, if you're getting paint all over your hands and paint all over the painting, that's not really all that good. I mean, you want to place the paint. It's not supposed to go wherever it goes. Okay. Alright. See, you can still see that through there. I think that looks okay. Okay, let's move on here. I'm going to continue with the orange there. I want to test it because I want it to be thin so I can see through it. And I'm going to move on here. This is looking kind of dry down there, so I feel pretty confident that I can place the slip sheet on top of it without it making a mess of anything. Alright, this is looking really good, folks. I know I say I'm easily impressed with myself, but I should not be saying that. I'm going to get art karma, which is not pleasant. So just about the time you think you're really doing great is just about the time something terrible happens if you're not careful. Alright, so I'm just going to continue with that again. So probably all 4 times. Test off the paint there, maybe a little more water just to make sure. Test it. Okay. Yeah, we want it to be a little bit thin so that it is transparent and we can see through it. And it looks like this is going to be okay. Alright, let's go back to what we're doing. Now see, this orange too is picking up some of that graphite, the pencil lead, as I touch over it with the brush, and that's kind of deadening the intensity also of the orange. It's not quite so brilliant. Alright, so here we go. Nicely done. Hold your breath if you must sometimes. And see, if I chose to, I could go back and I could detail these windows with a fine line marker, or I could even use a very thin paintbrush if I was motivated to do that. But a fine line marker is probably the best solution. It's what we've been using in the past for these. Okay, now I got one more sign and I'll be fine. Okay, sometimes, you know, the brush can carry a lot of pigment. There we go. Okay, so there we go. So the orange signs for the newspaper delivery route, one of my very first jobs I ever had. And that looks pretty good. So, I guess I'm going to have to go and find some other details to work on across the street, it looks like. So in this case, I might just go all the way down the road to the art camp building. And I think I'm going to have to very carefully work around some of those details right there. And this is probably going to have to be a blue window, I suppose. So I'm going to put just a little bit of blue. And I may have to very carefully paint around. Now, let's see, make sure if it's thin enough, I may be able to paint right over top of it. Let's see what happens. Oh yeah, that's nice. Very light blue. See, I can always make it a little darker, can't I? But trying to make it lighter doesn't work. It needs to have very fine control. Art Camp, that was a good job too. 98, 99, and 2000. I learned a lot by doing Art Camp. It was a good experience. We went to the Art Museum in Cincinnati frequently. Had a little camp out, not a camp out, a field trip like that, and we all ate at Wendy's, and it was kind of a neat place. Art campers are hard-working people. Okay, so I've got that very, very pale blue way down there at the end of the street, and I'm going to also make my door brown in this one. Now I'm going to have to make sure my brush is very clean and the bristles are dry and pointy, because this door is minute. I'm going to need a little bit more paint on the brush. There we go. Minute, so you have to use just the finest point of the brush in order to get any control down here at all. Any control. Alright, so keeping it in between the lines that you so painstakingly painted in some time back is kind of important. That looks pretty good. Now while that portion is drying, I think I can go ahead and do my some of the windows in my blue building here. And so they can't be blue in this case. They could be blue if they were brown doors, but I'm going to make them yellow anyway, because I think the yellow window is attractive. So let's, I gotta mix that up a little stronger. It's already, yellow's already a weak color, so I need to get some of it on the brush there. There we go. Alright, very good. Same thing here. Okay, that looks fantastic. Let's see, what could I do here? I could do my Dayton Journal Herald sign. I'm not going to do it in orange, but I may do it in a little bit of that blue. So pick up some of the blue here, and I want this to be kind of light so I can see through it. So that's not bad. So it really just takes real attention and focus to make these things look good. And just operating with the very, very, very pointiest part of the brush. Well, so that's looking pretty good. I like. And it's looking pretty good. So let's keep it moving here. Okay, very nice. Now I guess I'm going to have to go back, and I could start doing some of that window in the middle right there, see? And I'm just going to do little parts of it that are way separated from each other, so that they don't infuse together. So I'm going to start with a little bit of red, I suppose. And this brush needs to be relatively dry, I'm going to guess, in order to be able to control these. So I'm going to put some red here. You've got to be extremely careful with this. And I'm going to mix these colors. I'm going to vary the colors. I'm going to put lots of different colors in this window, but they can't touch each other because of the surface tension issues. So what I'm going to do then is go to maybe a yellow next, And as long as they're not side by side or touching each other, it should be fine. So I'll maybe put in a yellow right up in here. That looks great right there. And then I'm going to rinse my brush, and then I'm going to go for some other color, maybe a little green in this case. And I got to find a place for it, so maybe right here is an appropriate spot for it. So I'm trying to make kind of a stained glass window effect here. Now I know that sounds kind of fancy for a pizza place, but you know, it's not bad either. So let's see here. I could go to a little bit of orange. Wouldn't hurt, would it? So I'm gonna place that maybe right here. So my whole point is trying to not put two colors to touch each other until they're dry, and then I can do that. Here we go. Very good. Okay, so I can just keep approaching it this way, see, until I just can't get any more windows that are going to be, you know, not in contact with each other. It's not even really that good if the corners touch. But I'm going to get kind of brave here, and I'm going to pick up some violet. And I'm going to put it in this corner right here, this edge. Now the violet and the green will be in contact with each other right there at the corner, so if I'm good, I won't ruin it. If I'm sloppy, I'm going to get a bit of a mess. Alright, we're making outstanding progress here. I've got to be very careful, because these are tiny, tiny little control skills in there, and one of the reasons we do these drawings and paintings is to teach those kinds of control skills, or to learn them while you're making something like a painting or a class project. Okay, that's looking pretty good there, I think. I think I'm going to just leave that alone for a while. Probably could move on to some more details. I'm thinking that the side of this dumpster right here, I don't know what I'm going to do with that. I don't know what I'm going to do with that. This is looking pretty good. I might just take some green here, real dense, and just try to make my flowers in there, or my plants. This looks like an aloe plant of some sort there. Yeah, that looks pretty good. And then for my other little flowers down here, I'm going to have to, I don't know what color those should be. They can't be really, shouldn't be green. They probably should be, I guess, blue. So I'm just going to try to just put little indications that it's flowers. Oh, that's okay. Okay, so that looks pretty good. We're going to have to let those dry before we even try to put in any like green stalks or anything, because we can mess that up. Alright, what else we got to work on here? I could probably go over here and with just a dot, the smallest dot of black on the extreme far right hand side, I can detail up some of my my door latchings here, for instance. So here and here. I'm going to do this one here too. I might even go over here and do this one, because that black paint can really go a long ways. Okay, we're doing pretty good here. You just got to be patient with the black paint. There you go. Working with black paint is high risk. Can be high risk. Okay, well, I'm getting kind of a gray color there, but that's alright. Okay, let's go back over here and Kind of melt that a little bit so we get a little bit better control, a little bit better idea of what we're looking at there, which is some sort of a door device, like a handle you might push on to get in and out of the slide library. Okay, that doesn't look too bad. And then we'll do the same thing right here as well. We'll melt that down a little bit. Oh yeah, that looks really good. You can see it. Sometimes it gets really, between shadows being cast on the painting and the reflection of and the bright lights from the camera, sometimes it's hard to see your own painting. Okay, that looks pretty good. I think I'm going to stay with that. It looks like we're almost out of time anyway here. What can we do? One more thing. Maybe this doorway over here. If we use a little bit of just a little bit of watered down black, we can make it kind of look grayish on that. Oop, there it is. So here's, let's get it, see what happens anyway. So I watered down my black so it's kind of gray or charcoal-y looking instead of a you know, real dense black. Okay, so gotta be very careful with these because it's very, at the end of the class is where everybody gets in a rush, and that's when your paintings get ruined. Okay, just gotta be very careful down the edge of this, down the edge of that, along the top of that. Looks pretty good right there. And as you're seeing, your black paint can go a long ways on just one small dose. Okay, so, and I'm just moving this tiny, tiny little micro puddle of black water around is what I'm doing. And then I'm going to just kind of carefully touch around the doorknob there. That's probably, I think I should probably be happy with that. I have to continue to mess with it a little bit. Okay, well, that's looking pretty good. The way it's just peeking out from behind the alleyway there is also pretty good. Okay, yeah, a gray door on the side of the building. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you got as far as I did today. I hope you're keeping up with the project and that you're enjoying it. And we will get back together again during the next session, and we'll just keep on doing what we're doing, which is making progress. And so it's been nice talking to you today. Have a good day. Bye.